Greetings, my dear viewers. It is I, Drehon, and welcome back to Dungeons & Dragons Character Concept Deep Dive, where I take a look at some rather peculiar character ideas that I've either heard of or have come up with myself and translated them into a playable character for Dungeons & Dragons. Some of these character concepts might be a powerful archer, a parkour master, perhaps even a monster from Dungeons & Dragons lore, much like the lycanthrope or the mimic. Today we're taking a look at another such monster from the Curse of Strahd. And likewise, the Von Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, the entire Ravenloft setting. We have here the Mongrelfolk. Mongrelfolk are humanoids that have undergone, or whose ancestors underwent, horrific magical transformations to the extent that they retain only a fraction of their original being. Their humanoid bodies incorporate the features of various beasts. For example, one Mongrelfolk might have the basic body shape of a dwarf with a head that combines the features of a cat and a lizard, one arm that ends in a crab's pincer, and one leg that ends in a cloven hoof. Another might have the skin and horns of a cow, the eyes of a spider, frog's legs, and a scaly lizard's tail. Each Mongrelfolk's mad combination of humanoid and animal forms results in its having a slow, awkward gait. Gait? However you pronounce that last word. Pretty much some poor soul thought it would be nice to have animal features, only for it to backfire horrifically. The Mongrelfolk actually seem to take inspiration from the novel The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. More specifically, the Beast People, the creations that the Mad Doctor had created. Some sentient animals, or rather, human-animal conglomerations. We actually have a Dark Lord within the Ravenloft setting that takes inspiration from Dr. Moreau, known as Dr. Markov, who I will be going over when I go over the remaining 22 Domains of Dread, most likely next week. But anyway, why don't we go ahead and take a look at the Mongrelfolk and see how we can make a playable character in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Starting things off with our stats, we'll be using the point buy system. Going off of the Mongrelfolk stat block, we can see that we have decent strength, excellent constitution, not exactly great dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. So our pious stats are going to be strength and constitution at a 15 each. Dexterity will be at an 11, intelligence and wisdom will be at a 10, and charisma is going to be our lowest at an 8. Well, not exactly the best looking things to look at, so we are going to have a slightly lower charisma, but also it is harder for us to conversate since we don't exactly have an entirely humanoid vocal system. We even have a feature known as mimicry, allowing us to mimic any sounds that was heard, including voices. So we could, in fact, make the sounds of animals, which is why our vocal range isn't the best. So our ability to talk to others is definitely low. For our race, I thought it would be fitting to go with the Semic hybrid. This will give us a +1 to our strength, dexterity, and constitution if we are using the rules provided to us by Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, giving us a 16 in strength and constitution and a 12 in our dexterity. Now, Semic hybrids also have some excellent features. A walking speed of 30 feet, dark vision of 60 feet, and some animal enhancements. The Seamic hybrids are basically Mongrelfolk, who just did things a whole lot better. So we're going to go ahead and get our animal enhancements. I would recommend either the Nimble Climber or the Underwater Adaptation, since it fits the most with the Mongrelfolk's animalistic characteristics. And at 5th level, I would definitely recommend the Grappling Appendages. That's where you can get yourself a nice crab claw, or perhaps a long, slappy tentacle. If you are not a fan of the Seamic hybrid, I also recommend going with the Shifter, since they are also a race that has bestial characteristics incorporated into their form, being that they are the offspring of Lycanthrope. Moving on to the next step, I would recommend grabbing the Dark Gift of Symbiotic Being. This gives us the abilities Entwined Existence, Sustained Symbiosis, and Symbiotic Agenda. I wanted to go with this Dark Gift mostly because it is thematic with Ravenloft, and also one of these features is an additional face growing out of your body. And one of the features a Mongrelfolk is able to get is having 2 heads. So I thought it was definitely thematic to go with the Symbiotic Being Dark Gift. You don't need to have this Dark Gift in order to have a good Mongrelfolk. This is just something I thought was very flavorful. And speaking of flavor, next thing I wanted to do is go over the background. And the backgrounds that I thought best fit with a Mongrelfolk are the Fey Lost background and the Dragon Casualty background. With the Fey Lost background, we have access to a Fey mark. Number 8 actually gives us access to a tail that is similar to a dog or other animal. Another good idea is to go with ears that are covered with soft tufts of fur, or having the long whiskers of those of a cat, for numbers 3 and 4. You also get access to the Feywild Visitor and Feywild Connection. Those aren't that important. What is important are our proficiencies. We are proficient in Deception and Survival. We get 1 musical instrument of our choice, and 1 language of choice, either from the Elvish, Gnomish, Goblin, or Sylvan. Next is your Dragon Casualty, which gives us proficiencies in Intimidation and Survival. You also get a tool that is based off of your origin, which is basically who you were before you were altered by the dragon. You also get access to the feature Dragon Scarred, which gives you access to a disfigurement, and these disfigurements are very similar to what might be found on a Mongrelfolk, being that they are in fact animalistic features. Something that would be quite hilarious would be the bulbous reptilian eyes, or maybe even those large dorsal fins. Now for our class. Since the Mongrelfolk seem to have expertise in both deception and stealth, I thought it would be fitting to get a class that has this feature, and that would be the Rogue. This will give us a hit die of 1d8, starting hit points of 8 plus our Constitution modifier, which is currently a 3. Additional hit points will be 1d8 plus your Constitution modifier per rogue level. For your extra proficiencies, we are able to get access to light armor, simple weapons, hand crossbows, long sword, rapier, and short sword. For your tools, you have access to thieves' tools. For your saving throws, you are proficient in dexterity and intelligence saving throws. For your 4 skills, considering that we have the Fey Lost background, go ahead and go with the skills Intimidation, Perception, Sleight of Hand, and Stealth. For your expertise, go ahead and go for Deception and Stealth. You also have access to Sneak Attack and Thieves' Cant. At level 2, we get access to the feature Cunning Action. At level 3, we get a roguish archetype. I thought it would be fitting to go with the Thief. This will give us access to fast hands and second story work, as well as the ability Steady Aim. Next is our level 4 rogue. Go ahead and increase your dexterity by 2 points, making it a 14. This allows us to now multi-class out of rogue and into Barbarian, giving us a d12 hit die and extra hit points equal to 1d12 plus our Constitution modifier per Barbarian level. And we get some extra proficiencies. We are now proficient in shields and all martial weapons. We also have access to the Rage feature and Unarmored Defense. At level 2, Barbarians get access to Reckless Attack and Danger Sense. Level 5 Rogues get access to Uncanny Dodge. And level 3 Barbarians get the Primal Path of the Beast. This gives us more animalistic features to work with, which is perfect for our Mongrelfolk character. We get access to Form of the Beast, which gives us access to a natural weapon attack that is either a bite, claws, or a tail attack. We also get access to Primal Knowledge, giving us access to one more skill of our choice from the Barbarian skill list. This one doesn't really matter, and I forgot to pick one of those skills, so probably Nature, in my honest opinion, would be a perfect idea for the Mongrelfolk. Going on to level 6 Rogue, we get more expertise. This doesn't really matter, just go ahead and go with Intimidation and Sleight of Hand. Next is level 4 Barbarian. Since the Mongrelfolk have the Mimicry trait, I thought that it was more than fitting to go with the Actor feat. This will give us a +1 to our Charisma, as well as being able to give us advantage on Charisma Deception checks and Charisma Performance checks when trying to pass yourself off as a different person, which Mongrelfolk like to do by wrapping themselves in gigantic cloaks and just being seen as a skinny dwarf or a stout human. You also can mimic the speech of another person or the sounds made by other creatures. You must have heard the person speaking or heard the creature make the sound, much like the sound mimicry from the Mongrelfolk. A successful Wisdom Insight check contested by your Charisma Deception check allows a listener to determine that the effect is faked. And since you have advantage on such a check, you are decently good. Not to mention you have expertise, so you're even better. Going on to level 5 Barbarian, you now have access to the extra attack feature and fast movement feature, increasing your movement speed by 10 feet. Moving on to level 7 Rogue, you get access to evasion. Level 6 Barbarian of the Path of the Beast gets you the Bestial Soul. This will give you access to even more animalistic features, even a feature that is very similar to a Mongrelfolk feature that is possible, the ability to jump a certain distance. Moving on to level 7 Barbarian, we get access to Feral Instinct and Instinctive Pouts. At level 8, we get an increase to 2 of our ability scores. Go ahead and go for your Charisma and your Constitution. At level 8, we get another ability score improvement thanks to our Rogue, but instead we will go for a feat. Resilient is actually a pretty good feat to have. This will increase our Constitution by 1 point and give us proficiency in the Constitution saving throw. Level 9 Rogue is next, and since we are of the roguish archetype of Thief, we get Supreme Sneak. At level 10 Rogue, go ahead and increase your Constitution score by 2 more points. Rogues at level 11 get Reliable Talent, and to finish things off with Rogue level 12, go ahead and increase your Strength by 2 more points. And with that being said, that is the end of this video. Did you enjoy this build for the Mongrelfolk? Are there any other horror icons you would like to see within Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition? Let me know down in the comments below. And until next time, this has been Drahon, and I M offline.